There we go. There we go. Okay. So again, this is the second time me and Ian try to do this. Seems like every time I try to get a testimony, there's a bunch of issues. But so this is how we'll do it, Ian, Mr. Ian. I think a good format or a good guiding way to think about this is with testimonies. Obviously, there's everybody has a childhood, which is pretty innocent for the most part. Then something typically happens when you start hitting the teen years that pull you out of your innocence, I guess you could say, or even maybe before that. And then we
Hmm.
circle when we come back to Christ, right?
Yep.
So Ian, we met online. I met him on Facebook. I just reached out to some people on Facebook, and Ian has a good testimony. You've been preaching and stuff, you said, right?
Yeah, today was my first time I preached at two churches.
Interesting. Maybe you could touch on that a little later. But yeah, like I said, we'll start off with you just kind of talking about how you grew up, and that'll be kind of, I guess, I'm gonna break this video up into three parts. I'll decide
Hmm.
after we're done which part will be part one, and part two will be like the adolescence, teen years when things start going a little dark, I guess, like it does for most of us. And then the final part will be you when you finally came to Christ and all that good stuff. So if you want, you go ahead and start, man. You can start from when you were a kid. And I'm kind of familiar with the story, but go through it all again, just so everybody can kind of hear what's going on.
Well, I was born in Eugene, Oregon
Hmm.
in October 29th, 1990, and my mom and my dad were really young, 20 years old. Uh, my mom signed over custody of me to my grandparents because they were in a bad way. So they got on some program where they got a social security check for me every month. Um,
So wait, let me ask you real quick. So your parents, they got together young, they had you out of wedlock and all that good stuff, and they were just young and not ready, or how did it work? They just weren't ready
I
for the kid. They knew, you know what, we can't take care of him. Let my grandparents do this, or do you know how it came?
No, my mom and my dad were actually married, and then
Oh, okay,
um my mom was taking care of me, but
okay.
my grandparents were in a bad way. So
Oh, your grandparents. Oh, I see. Okay,
Mhm.
I misunderstood. Uh-huh.
uh so they so my mom signed over custody to them so that they would get a social security check.
Oh, I see. To help them financially. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I heard that the wrong way.
No, you're a good man. I
Your
probably
parents
did
were
wrong.
good. They were married. They were young. And then your
Yeah.
grandparents need help. They're like, you know what? If you have
Hmm.
custody of Ian, then you guys will get some financial help. Okay, okay.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, my mom and my dad were young, so they fought a lot, had their problems, probably
Yeah.
got married for the wrong reasons. So that relationship didn't work out. And then my mom met my sister's dad, and um, I was probably about 3 or 4,
Hmm.
and I played in some paint that I wasn't supposed to be in, and so my sister's dad spanked me with a paint mixer. No big thing.
What are you talking like that stick paddle thing?
Yeah. The ones you get at Home Depot, like the little like thin piece of
Yeah.
wood.
Yeah. I caught some similar lickings when I was little too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my grandparents heard about it and completely went ballistic about it because they didn't like my sister's dad
Yeah. So
anyway.
this is your mom's parents.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And so they called the cops, and my grandparents and the police showed up, and I ran out to them because I hadn't seen my grandparents in a long time. So like they took me,
Yeah. And
and
you remember that?
no,
Okay.
not at all. And then I was raised by my grandparents for a long time, from 4 until like 10 years old. And they had to, my mom had siblings, and they turned into like, they had substance abuse problems and just into drugs and alcohol. And um so my grandparents were afraid that like I would turn out the same way, or they changed their parenting style somewhere along the line, and I was like a weird kid. I was like sheltered, so
Mhm.
I wasn't homeschooled, but I got kind of strange. And so
Okay, so let me get this. So, okay, so you went with your grandparents when you were about 4, you said, right? And then
mm,
you had your aunt, was it your aunties and your sis, your mother's siblings? Was it like an uncle, an auntie? Did she have a
two
uh
they were brothers.
two? Okay. Oh, so you had two
So
uncles in the house with you?
no,
Oh, okay.
no, they just
They
like
just
turned.
were around.
Yeah,
And they
well, I
like,
mean, I didn't even I've never even met them to this day.
okay,
But
so
just the
so your grandparents saw that they fell into addiction and they were like, we don't want this to happen to Ian, so let's change the way we raise him. Let's do some things differently. Okay, okay, I get it.
yeah. So I mean, I got real sheltered. I got like weird.
Overprotective they became, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. And like I was raised that my mom was like was told all the time that my mom was a liar and like an evil person and just like all this all these thoughts just put in my head about how terrible of a person my mom was. And dude, like that did a number on me. And
Yeah,
I mean, so my mom got some of this is really fuzzy, but then my mom and my grandparents started talking again. And my mom started coming around more, and then at this point, my sister was born,
mhm.
and
How old were you when your little sister was born?
let's see, 6,
6, okay.
and so my they started coming around more, and like stuff was rocky, and like they didn't like my grandpa had like a hair trigger, so he would like anything like my mom had to do stuff right, or it would just set him off, and I mean when my grandpa would get mad, he wasn't the kind of guy that would like yell at you in your face. He would like do some sneaky underhand stuff, like put butter in your gas tank kind of thing, just like
Like vindictive stuff, huh?
yeah, super vindictive, dude. And
Wow.
yeah, and so I don't to this day I still don't really know how it all went down, but and I don't care.
Yeah.
It's stupid. But my grandparents put like a lien or like put their house up that we were living in for sale or something so that he could buy a so my grandpa could buy a log truck and start trucking with my mom and my stepdad because they
Mm.
lived in a small town in Washington and they owned log trucks. Well, we moved up there, like stuff was tense. My grandpa never got the truck, and then all of a sudden we're like moving in the dead of night back to where we came from, which is like up on the other side of Seattle. And then it was even more in my head, man, just like how evil my mom was. Then my mom like made us homeless and she sold the house and then to this day I have no I don't know what happened. It's not
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't care,
yeah,
And but I was like 9 or 10 years old when this happened. And all the time I just again was just being brainwashed about how awful of a person my mom was. And then my grandpa cheated on my grandma and dude that like wrecked my whole world.
yeah.
Just destroyed me.
So so your grandpa was basically the male, like the father figure you had in your life that you actually respected and loved, right?
Yeah, I mean, up
Your
until like,
biological at this point, was he just kind of took off?
yeah,
Oh, he was gone. Okay. She didn't even grow up with him at all. You don't remember him? Nothing. Okay.
no,
Grandpa was a big deal.
my grandpa was.
Yeah, for you, he was just,
Yeah,
yeah,
and I mean, he was up until a few years ago too. And I mean, it's crazy.
yeah.
But like all of a sudden, my mom was calling my grandma, or grandma called my mom and had her drive like 8 hours to come and get me. And then before I know it, I'm living with my mom, my stepdad, and my sister in in Trout Lake, Washington, in like a little town,
Mm-hmm.
and started going to school there. Um, dealing with like that trauma,
And how
of
old were you at that point?
like 11.
11. Oh, a preteen. That's when
Yeah,
it's getting a little more serious for kids when things start.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
When you become a sponge,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and like grew was growing up, and then my sister's dad would just wasn't a great guy, wasn't a good role model. He was pretty abusive mentally and physically
Yeah.
to all of us. And there'd be just be times that he would come home and just not say anything to anybody. And it's like, dude, like you're sitting there 12 years old, 13 years old, like what did I do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've always been like that. Like what did I do to make this person upset at
Yeah.
me? So, dude, that kind of stuff screwed with my head. And then I started acting out in school, just like, I got picked on a lot because I was little.
Yeah.
And so then I started picking on people too who were younger than me,
Yeah.
just like some kind of sick, like snowball effect.
Yeah. I can just to kind of relate to you what you're telling me about. Like, I grew up my dad and my mom and stuff, and those two, they fought like cats and dogs. And it was my
Mm,
mom bad mouthing my dad. My dad didn't really, he didn't say too much, but he was violent.
mm,
So I was violent too. I was very violent. And the way I'm telling you this to see if you kind of felt the same way, but the way I felt when I was a kid, I mean, I started fist fighting kids when I was like 5 or 6 years old. So by the time I became a teenager and I was, a little more dangerous, I just saw it like this. Like I take so much crap at home, verbal abuse from the mom, physical abuse from the dad. I don't have patience for anybody else. So
hmm.
quick to hit people, quick. I threw a desk at a teacher. So I was just like, you're so fed up with you
Yeah.
just can't take no more. You don't have any patience. Did you kind of feel the same?
Uh, yeah, but mine didn't come out sideways. Like I didn't get in fights. I
Uh-huh.
was like a super angry kid.
Yeah.
Like I just had like a hair trigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Like your grandpa.
yeah.
Yeah.
And during this time, my grandma moved up closer to us, and she was like all depressed and stayed in bed all the time. And I'd walk down the street and like from where we lived and go see her every once in a while, and or watch a movie with her or stay the night. And like, dude, I was still like before my grandpa cheated on my grandma, I was so brainwashed that my grandparents started like letting me call them mom and dad.
Mm.
Like, yeah, dude. Like it got strange.
So it's like, it- was it like they looked at you like, look, we get one last chance to do it right. It was,
Yes, that's exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
And were they religious too? Were they
My
no?
grandma, my grandma was, she'd always, she'd tell me from like, as long as I could remember that like God's got a plan for you and you're
Mhm.
gonna do something important one day.
Yeah.
But we didn't go to church. Um, I got involved in the youth group when I lived with my mom when I was young.
Okay.
But that was just a play, nothing ever stuck. It was just a place
Yeah.
for go and
Somewhere to
so
go hang out. Yeah.
socialize after
Yeah.
school.
Yeah. I did the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but my mom would take us to church on like Easter and sometimes for a Christmas service. And like I didn't get involved in drugs or anything, but I was just like stuff was coming out sideways and like picking
Mhm.
on kids who like shouldn't have definitely have been picked on.
Yeah,
I mean, like picking on kids and like hazing, that stuff's like bad.
yeah.
No doubt about it. But there, like, I was an angry little kid, and there was people I was picking on that already was having a tough time in life. You know what I mean? And
I know.
yeah,
Yeah, I saw a lot. When I was a kid, we were around a lot of thugs and the gang stuff, and that's my brothers were involved. I never got involved, but they were my brothers. So whatever they got into, I got in it too. But we never did any of the picking on anybody, but we definitely got into some big rumbles. I mean, it was bad, man.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Got me people getting shot, that kind of crazy stuff. But that's another story. But yeah, I
dang,
know exactly what you're saying, man. I can picture what I mean, I knew kids like that, that you can tell they were angry. Like you described yourself as a little kid, kind of quiet, reserved, like
mm-hmm.
trigger. I see it very clearly. I get it, man. Yeah.
And dude, I mean, I was picked on like unmercifully.
Yeah.
Like I was so small, I got shoved in a locker and they broke a pencil off in the, where you can put your twist
Yeah,
turn
yeah,
lock.
yeah.
They shoved the pencil in there and broke it off, and
Well,
I
damn,
could,
that's
yeah,
pretty.
yeah, and let's see, just acting out in school, getting suspended, like giving my teachers a hard time,
This is
and
when you're already like middle school, teen years.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
So
I,
let me so when this went down with your grandparents and you went back to your mom's with your stepdad, that's when things got a little darker. Like with your grandparents, I understand it was kind of weird because they were treating you like, but it
mm-hmm.
doesn't sound to me like anything was really dark at that point, right? It was when you went to your mom's with the stepdad that things got scary and negative, right?
Yeah, but I still think that like my grandparents wasn't a healthy environment because
No,
I was
yeah,
just
definitely. Yeah,
getting, brainwashed and I'm like the prodigal son in a way, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I get it, man. I do. I really do.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. It's sad. It's sad that, parents do this type. Yeah. It's like all the mistakes that my parents made with me as a kid. I've made peace with them. I've moved on to make sure I don't carry those demons forward and carry that, that type of mentality where you overcorrect your behavior because somebody did something bad to me. I want to make sure I never do that. So I allow things to happen in my house that I shouldn't allow because I'm overcorrecting. I've thought
Mhm.
about that deeply, man. I mean, before I became a dad, I left home at a young age. I went through a journey and I learned a lot. God healed me. He healed me enough before I became a dad, but when I became a dad, he healed me even more. But it's definitely very tricky.
Yeah.
You got to be hyper aware of this so you don't overcorrect your behavior towards your kids and then you screw them up in the other direction. Let's say my dad
Mhm.
beat that crap out of me, right? Now I'll never even raise my voice to my son because I'm gonna yell at my kids, but I'm not gonna beat the crap. You know what I mean? It's like my dad beat the crap out of me doesn't mean I'm gonna go hyper gentle on my kids. I'm still gonna be stern, but I'm not gonna be violent. You know what I mean? So it's tough,
Yeah.
man. It's tough, and I hear of it a lot, bro. I hear of it a lot. I'm sure I've made some mistakes, but hey, man, I try my best. And you're a dad too, and you got young ones, right? But we'll get into that later.
Mhm.
Keep on going, man.
I like started acting out in school, was like running with who I thought was the cool kids.
So what were
And
these like the skater, the gang member, the smokers, the what were they?
a little mix of everything. It was like,
Uh,
dude, it was a tiny little town, so no one,
okay, okay.
no, there's maybe 15 kids in my class.
Oh, that's a small town, bro.
Yeah. So we were like kind of like the rednecks, like,
Okay.
yeah, nobody, nobody I ran with like really started smoking pot yet. And
Hmm.
I always told myself, like, we had Dare show up, like the Dare,
Yeah,
not,
I remember.
dude, I always told myself that, like, I was never gonna do drugs. I was never gonna smoke pot and never gonna drink. And like, I kept getting in trouble in school, and I got mouthy at home. So my sister's dad, my stepdad, didn't like that very much.
Yeah,
And more stuff happened there, like, he never really beat me, but there just like instilled fear in me. And
of course.
there was times he'd like slam me up against the wall by my throat, and like quit having an attitude and just screaming at me. And like, he was a
I'll tell you something, brother. My dad beat the crap out of us. I was just talking to my wife about this earlier. I don't know how it came up, but between my mom and my dad, my dad passed away. He's gone. He beat the crap out of us. He had a bad temper, but the thing was, he only did that when we really did something stupid. And I'm not saying it was correct for him to do that, but I never held it against him, and I still don't know why. Because he he beat the crap out of us, and he'd sit with us and be like, "Look, boys," because I have two brothers, right? And he talked to us like, "You guys got to stop. I don't want to have to whoop your butts, right?" So he always made peace with us, but the stuff my mom would say to us, she said evil stuff, man, and she meant it. That's the stuff I still have a hard time forgiving. So the beatings my dad gave me, I never held it against him. So, when you're telling me that there was abuse in the house, a lot of times it could have been worse, man. Getting your butt
oh,
kicked,
for
that
sure.
hurts. But then you kind of deserved it at the same time. I mean, we did bad stuff, bro. I cut school when I was like 7 years old, and I went around the neighbor. There's a townhome, apartment complex, like a bunch of townhomes. Me and my friends ran around and broke probably like 30 windows for some reason. I was 7 years old. My dad beat the crap out of me. I kind of deserved it, but my whole point of this is, when your parents or people that you love say certain things to you, that stuff sticks with you. I'm 44 years old now.
Hmm.
And I still, when I talk about it, it bothers me. It's like, how could you say that stuff to me? So physical abuse isn't always the worst. There's other stuff that can happen to a kid that sticks with them forever, man. So I
Oh
sympathize
yeah.
with you. I sympathize with you big time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, dude, it totally could have always been worse for me.
Yeah.
And when I say that there was like abuse in the house, it's just like I had to tiptoe around. I was terrified all the time
Yeah.
of just making him fly off the handle. And I kept getting in trouble in school, kept like my grades were awful. And so my parents would talk to me about it, and I would just like flip them attitude.
Yeah.
And my sister's dad would fly off the handle, and then just a wreck. And I was 16 years old at this time, and we moved. And like, I mean, I had friends and I had established relationships, and like, I didn't want to move. So that was a
Yeah.
huge, like, knock against my confidence, I guess. Like, dude, kids need to have like firm foundations.
Oh yeah.
They need to feel safe. And just when I finally started to feel kind of safe and secure with like life in a way, we were moving.
Yeah. That sucks.
So we moved to this house, and I started to go to a private Christian school. And like, I had a New Testament class as one of my classes, and like my school books were all like faith based. And I came home and brought my school books, and like I kind of known who God was by then. And I was excited about having these school books. And my sister's dad flipped out and was like, I don't want him learning this stuff. This is BS. Like, yeah,
Wow. That's scary.
yeah,
Some
definitely
demonic
looking,
stuff coming out of him.
yeah, looking back on it now, it was like,
Yeah,
whoa.
that's some yeah, that's some
Hmm.
demonic oppression. Like, no, yeah, that's crazy.
That's
Yeah,
some dark stuff.
yeah.
And I mean, my parents are paying a lot of money for me to go to this school, and at this point, we'd lost the log truck company. The recession hit, fuel prices. My parents couldn't pay the bills on the trucks. Whatever.
Mhm.
Not my problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But my life was completely flipped upside down from where I'd gotten comfortable, and I made new friends at this school. I'm I'm a pretty good chameleon. You know what I mean? Like I can
Yeah,
fit
yeah.
in wherever I
You
want for the most
you're
part.
adaptable. You can, yeah, yeah.
I'm pretty like extroverted.
Hmm.
Like I like to socialize, and um so I made friends fast and didn't pay attention in any of my New Testament stuff. Would have like service on Wednesday mornings at school, and none of that stuck. And I was the kid that was watching like Family Guy and South Park at that age, and just like mind melt, dude.
Who
Just
wasn't? Who wasn't? We all watched that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, exactly. But it's just like that stuff on a developing, growing brain is
Yeah.
just, you know what I mean? Like filling your
Oh,
head
yeah.
with those kind of jokes and
It just makes you, it just perverse your mind, man. Yeah.
absolutely, dude. And like
Yeah.
watching awful movies and let's see. And then I kept getting in trouble, kept getting in trouble. And like I was in the principal's office all the time. And I met like I had a friend there who was going there from Alaska, and we both were on the golf team. So like every day for practice, we would go and play 9 holes at the country club.
Uh-huh.
And then our house was like a long ways away. So I could stay for practice. I would just stay the night at his house. Well, him and I started car prowling at night, like
Heart problem?
breaking into people's cars,
Oh,
like
okay.
not 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 popping locks, but just looking for open cars.
Yeah. Oh, I see. I see. Okay.
Yeah. And we did that for a while, made some money, sold some stuff. um,
Little hustlers, huh? Little hustlers.
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. It's all good, man. Uh, most boys
And
got in trouble, man. We did
oh
work
yeah, dude, I
there.
was a
Yeah.
turd. Hold on, I'm gonna
Yeah.
shut these curtains real quick.
Yeah. Yep. Go for it. Your son's blinding you, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. I didn't know what it was doing to your video quality.
No, no. It looks good now, though. Yeah, that's good.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then like we were out one night and we heard a car rolling up, so we dove in front of the car we were just inside, and it like a cop car rolled by super slow and shined its like floodlight on us. And dude, we just played cat and mouse all night with the local city cops and just hiding. We didn't get caught, but we made it back to his house. And that was the last time we did that.
Yeah.
And I was like dating a girl at the time, like long distance relationship from where I had moved from. Well, I got suspended, expelled, whatever, one of those two,
Hmm.
and got sent to my grandparents' house, which they lived like in Wasco, Oregon, which is
Hmm.
close to where I live now. And anytime I get in trouble, I'd always have to go to my grandparents for this summer because my mom and stepdad had had enough of me.
Yeah.
Well, like I was seeing this girl, I moved there, got a job, like doing yard work, um,
And how are you at this point?
like 16, going on 17, going into my junior year.
Okay.
And then my parents, they moved from where they were living to Bend, So like the girl I was seeing was pretty promiscuous for like being
Mhm, mhm.
young kids,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like so a lot of, you know,
yeah,
hormones
yeah,
flowing being a 17-year-old guy.
yeah, of course.
So and like why I highlight some of this stuff is just like I'm highlighting the sin
Yeah,
that I
I,
experienced in my, yeah. Um so like tasted lust for the first time,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
in well
That's one of
that's
the biggest things we have as a problem now, man. For starting at a young age. You said you got a newborn little boy now, you said? Or how old's your
hmm
son? A couple, yeah. I
he's
got three.
one now.
I got three,
Well,
and it's
I've
oh, you
got
got the
three.
other two, right? Yeah.
hmm
Well, you should, yeah, man, and you just got to keep an eye on them. You'll see at a certain age, their eyes start moving differently when they see girls, and you gotta
Yeah.
just before I got home, because I'm on the road 6 weeks at a time. I got home and my two youngest were sitting around with me, and they asked me, they're like, "Dad, how many girlfriends had you had?" One is 11 and one is 9. I'm like, why do you guys want to know that? I don't know that. I talked to him. I told him, I was like, hey, look, this is what I experienced before mom. And I told him it was wrong. And they're like, why? And I'm like, because when you do that, your mind gets hyper focused on just the act of sex. And then you can't look at a female for anything besides that.
hmm
I'm a big proponent of eating like good, clean foods, like grass fed this and grass fed that. We don't have sugar in the house. I told them just like if you have a little bit of sugar, it's okay. But if you have it all the time, you get addicted. And they know, they understand that sugar is addictive. I go, it's the same thing with anything you do. So a little bit might be okay, but if that's all you focus on, you're going to become addicted and it destroys you. So I was able to explain that to them. And then my wife told me after, oh, yeah, I forgot the boys are asking about how many. I'm like, now you tell me, you should have told me ahead of time.
Yeah.
It caught me off
Yeah.
guard, but it's lust, man. I think that's the hardest sin for men to overcome.
Yeah.
I'm convinced. I'm convinced. So, and they get them
Yeah.
young. They get them young, man.
Yeah. Exactly, dude. And I like that's a I mean, that was a big thing for me too, is like, dude, like all my friends have lost their virginity. Like I gotta lose mine. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. And you're cool when you do it. Hell yeah, man.
yeah,
What happened
yeah.
to me, the details and all that stuff.
It's like a rite of passage, dude. Like,
Yep.
and so that happened, and then I moved away, and like I said, dude, I moved to I was a small town kid, and then we
Uh-huh.
moved to Bend, Oregon, which has like 80,000 people in it. And there was like 300 or 400 kids in my class being a junior.
Wow. Dang.
Yeah, dude.
Huge,
And I
huge.
huge.
Yeah.
And I was going out to one of four high schools in that city.
Mhm.
So and where I'm going with this is like, dude, my eyes like like a good analogy is like you ever heard chasing the dragon?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, dude, like there were girls everywhere. Everywhere. So I ended up cheating on my girlfriend,
Yeah.
and um dude, just a terrible, like
Yeah.
terrible little kid, dude. And at this point, I'd uh I'd started skateboarding, so I was like hanging out with the skater kids, and they were all smoking cigarettes, and one of the kids was like, dude, your stepdad shoes, right? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, dude, you should steal a can. No, I'm terrified of that, man. I'm never gonna steal
Yeah.
a can, but I'll get us the money to get a can of chew.
Yeah.
He's like, okay. And we got the can of chew, and I remember walking across from the subdivision we always skated in and we all lived in to like a new construction site and sitting there and chewing for the first time. Dude, freaking puked my guts out, and I was like, I'm never gonna try this again. It made me feel terrible. And then I tried it again, like the next day. And that's still an addiction that I'm still struggling with.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, working on it though. But
Yeah, yeah.
and that was, dude, I'm 34 now. So I was like,
You were like what, 17 at the time?
yeah, 17 years ago. Am I
I don't
doing my
know.
math
I
right,
hate about
dude?
math, and I hate math. Math breaks my brain.
Yeah. Math breaks my brain too, dude.
Yeah, not good for math.
And just smoking cigs and starting to cut class all the time. And it was my 17th birthday. I remember my buddy was like, dude, it's your birthday, right? Yeah. He's like, dude, we should cut class, walk down the street, and go smoke pot. I'm like, sure, why not? Went down there and just got like absolutely obliterated stoned.
Yeah.
And over the like that summer when I was living at my grandparents, my buddy and I, who lived in the same town as my grandparents, jacked a cooler of beer from an RV park that was just sitting outside.
Uh-huh.
And dude, I got super drunk and I threw up everywhere. And I was like, I hate beer.
Yeah.
Never gonna do this again. So, like, I got into smoking weed and not partying, not being social about it, would just smoke at the skate park.
Mhm.
And I don't think my mom and stepdad ever found out, but I don't know. For the longest time, my mom, because I got stoned for the first time when I was 17, so I came home that night just super baked. And my mom had made me a birthday cake, and she took a picture of me blowing out my candles. And for like 12 years, dude, she had this picture of me stoned for the first time on her fridge. I was like, what?
If
Mom,
she
you
only.
can't. Yeah. Like, mom, you can't have this picture on the fridge anymore.
That's funny, man.
Dude, it was awful. Made me feel so bad. And, like
So
I
tell
always
me,
had a
fast
friend.
forward, tell me how you, because I know you end up getting into some harder stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
So was it the drinking and the weed, like they say, the gateway drug? Was that, yeah?
Dude, I will preach this all day that weed is a gateway drug
Yeah,
because it removes the fear.
yeah,
You get like it
yeah,
removes that barrier that makes you think like, oh, I've already smoked pot, so this can't be that bad, or this
yeah,
can't be like you get used to the feeling of like the curiosity kills the cat, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like you stop listening to your conscience.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, well, I've already done this, so I can
yeah.
let's see what cocaine's about.
Hmm.
And
So how did that happen then?
how to start doing coke.
Yeah, or whatever. I mean, everybody, not everybody, most people tampered with a little weed back in the days, but very few of us went the harder route. I did myself. I got into meth and stuff. I was able to
Hmm.
get the hell away from it by the grace of God and sheer will. But I have my story, but this is not my time. This is your time. So, so
Hmm.
I got introduced actually to the hard stuff. I had a cousin who came from El Salvador to stay with us. First time I tried coke was with him. I was like 15. So I had already tried that, and I was like, oh, whatever. Never did it again. And then I was working the graveyard shift, and I was like 18 or 19 and working at night, right? Somebody's like, "Oh, try this." I was like, "What is that?" It's meth. I didn't know what it was. And I'm like, he's like,
Hmm.
"Coke, but better." I was like, "Oh, I did coke before." And then I tried meth. And then a couple of years went by like that. So, I mean, that's how I experienced it. And it was bad.
Yeah. I Well, I started going to a different school because my parents moved on a different side of town, and I never had my driver's license when I was like a kid or in high school. I never wanted
Mhm.
it. I always had friends who drove. So like I met this kid and we started partying and drinking beer and um, smoking weed all the time at all these parties, and like I started fitting into like the cool kid clique.
Mhm.
Like all
Yeah,
the seniors came to us to know where the parties were at. And it was like I don't even remember the first time I tried coke. It was just at I think it was at a Halloween party, and I was just sloppy drunk. My friends like, dude, try some of this. You got $10. Like you can buy a line and then it'll like sober you up. Like what? Oh,
yeah, yeah.
like okay, man. Like snorted some and it was like Popeye and the spinach, dude. Like
Yeah,
and ever since like from that point on at certain parties we'd be like, yeah, dude, like let's get some coke. And then I did ecstasy and that was great in the moment. You know what I mean? Like
I did a bunch of that crap too. And then you get depressed for like a week afterwards.
yeah, for a good minute.
Yeah.
And then I had like we were at a party and then some friends of mine were at the same party and we all left and then they ran a red light and got T-boned by a semi and like instantly killed. So that was a pretty traumatic moment in
Yeah.
my partying life. Not, I mean, didn't lead me to change any of my habits
Yeah.
or, and I was still getting awful grades, uh, partying all the time, staying out late, lying to my parents, not coming home when I should have, fighting with my parents. And this whole time my little sister's watching me, you know what I mean? And I'm being a great
Yeah.
role model. Like,
Yeah.
and so I barely graduated. I didn't get to walk because I didn't care. I never put any time in to caring. And I moved back with my grandparents and was just like turned into like a pot smoking like nerd.
Hmm.
I played World of Warcraft all the time and just didn't do anything. And then I got a job with my sister's dad back in Bend, like he was a diesel mechanic, so I got a job being his assistant, moved back in with my parents. Well, I got back involved with the same crowd. Like all of my money would go to like drugs, like party
Yeah.
drugs and alcohol, and then I moved in with my homies and we were like there were six of us in a four-bedroom house and it was just party, party, party,
Yeah.
party,
Right.
just rager after rager every night. I would go to work
Wow.
like drunk the next day because if I didn't host a party, then my homie roommate would host a party the next night, and dude, it was just wild.
This was in a house.
Yeah,
Good thing it wasn't an apartment. You guys would have got kicked out for sure. Yeah, there
oh,
was a house
for
like that for us.
sure.
There was a house like that for us back in the days. I was about 21 or younger, and it was
Yeah,
always shrooms and ecstasy, shrooms and ecstasy, shrooms and ecstasy. It was bad, man. Yeah, we did. I had a bad trip, but that's another story. Yeah,
yeah. I did shrooms. Yeah, I did shrooms like my senior year too. So that's when sometimes, dude, there's just been like so much that I've done that I forget about.
yeah.
And it's
So,
like, yeah,
okay, so then you got out of high school, and then I know you said you met a girl, and you guys had you had two little boys before, or what was it? A little boy, little girl.
yeah.
What age were
Uh,
you when that happened?
I was 21
Okay, and where were you living
and
at that?
I moved back to Wasco because my stepdad had a stroke. So
Okay.
they moved back, and like everything was cool. They were getting along with my grandparents, and we like that relationship was kind of mended. Well, we moved back and they bought a piece of property that from my grandparents and were building a house.
Hmm.
And so I moved back to help with that and like quit my job because my sister's dad was my boss, so now he can't work. And so my sister started going to the school out here, and I was like, hey, like hook me up with one of your hot friends. And then so I started talking to this girl, like just more debauchery with her, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, her brother was a drug addict, so she didn't like me like smoking pot.
Hmm.
So that was a huge point of contention for us. And like I would go hang out with some of my friends after work and smoke, and then I would go um, to her place, and she would break up with me because I was stoned. And like we got through her senior year, she was 17 and I was 21. Well, and her birthday was in July of that year, so she would have been 18. And that was just a huge thing with her family, is that I was older, that much older than her, and she was still young. Well, she got pregnant, and I'd like lost countless jobs at this point, just not cared what, partying all the time, taking Molly, like drinking, smoking. Then we had my first son, Aiden, and that didn't clean up my act at all. And we fought all the time, and her and I did. And like we'd lost a house that I was renting because we just wasn't paying rent. And I
Yeah.
got in trouble with the law, like got a car repoed, just wasn't paying my bills, wasn't being like a contributing member of society.
Yeah.
And like I said, lost multiple jobs, tried working at McDonald's, like lived with her mom for a while. Dude, it's just an absolute night.
Yeah.
Still doing drugs, like would leave her at home with the baby, and like she's like, don't leave, like let's hang out tonight. And I'm just like, nah, I'm gonna go get drunk, like go party with my friends. And by that point I'd become like kind of a raver, like
Hmm.
listen to like electronic music. And
Yep.
so we would have like Molly parties at my friend's house with like strobe lights and LEDs, and like take acid and get all like
Yeah. Mhm. Did the
yeah,
same. I did the same.
yeah, dude, like sit there and listen to trance music and watch weird Tool music videos. And dude, it was
Yeah.
just awful,
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah. It's just
Oh,
darkness, man. Yeah, I did that
yeah.
too.
And just and my mom and my sister's dad had split at this point, and my mom started dating a guy that our family knew when I was young, living in the small town. And
Uh-huh.
his name is Clint. And at first I didn't like him, like getting all like tough, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
about my mom dating this guy. And
Yeah.
and like drinking at his place. And dude, his daughter and his son are were like my good friends when we were growing up.
Hmm.
So him and my mom went out of town for a week, and dude, we threw the fattest rager at his house. And like broke a bunch of stuff. And looking back on it, it was just all horrible, terrible, like
Yeah.
awful decisions.
What makes it worse is that there's a whole culture with music and partying around the drug. It's addiction, but we cover
Hmm.
music and friends to justify it to ourselves, but it's an addiction. That's all it is, and
Yeah.
it's like the culture, this demonic culture justifies it for the kids by saying, well, you're having fun, you only live once, you're with your friends, you're this and that. You know,
Or
the
it's
biggest one
love.
is you're young and have fun. It's a lie.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I fast forwarded a like a good amount.
Hmm.
There's like fights and breakups with my ex, and like we'd both go and sleep with other people and then get back together a week later, and just
Bad.
and so I got a job with my him and my mom got married, and like went to the wedding, got turned up, like just tons of partying, tons of alcohol, tons of weed. And I like he got me a job. He was logging up like in another small town, like
Hmm.
close to where I moved to when I was 11, and I started working for his brother, like my uncle, like in the shop doing shop stuff, cleaning this, spray washing that, and my girlfriend at the time ended up getting pregnant
Hmm.
with our second kid, Avery, and we moved her up there. And like, dude, there's so many times that like, and I would started going to like big raves, big concerts, and just getting all messed up all the time. There's so many times I should have died because I drove inebriated or drove all
Yeah.
messed up,
Yeah.
and like it's only because God was watching me. You know what I mean? That I survived. And like I don't know, her and I fought all the time, still weren't paying our bills. Long story short, I started logging, which my stepdad became my supervisor because he was the manager of one of the logging sites. And was doing like dangerous logging, like the cable stuff, like
Hmm.
setting chokers. And just again, just nonstop partying, going through like a 30 rack of beer every day to myself. Just drink
Wow.
tons, smoking tons. Like I was making good money and none of the money went to where it was supposed
Wow.
to. And like my license got suspended because I got pulled over for speeding. And I was stoned and I was kind of drunk. So I don't have any idea how I didn't get a Dewey that night.
Yeah.
And so my license got suspended because I defaulted on a payment plan for that ticket, but I kept driving the company rig. Hmm. And I ended up wrecking the company rig. I got fired. Uh, like fell into a depression. Had cheated on my girlfriend at the like countless times because I'd just gotten super messed up, drunk, and you know, one thing
Yeah.
to another with random girls at parties. And then so I got into like a super dark place, laying in bed all the time, wasn't being a father to my kids. And then my mom was like, "Hey, you should take this. It'll help you get like motivated because I was diagnosed with ADD when I was
Mm,
younger. They tried to
mhm.
get like Ritalin, and I just hated it when I was a kid
Yeah.
because I wouldn't eat. It made me feel weird. Well, my mom had an Adderall prescription, and she gave me one. And
Mhm.
dude, I was like there was sunshine again.
Mm,
It made me feel good. It made me get up. I helped my wife clean the house. I didn't have a job. I was living off unemployment. And like I kept bumming Adderall from my mom. And she's like, "Well, we'll go to my doctor and I'll go in with you and we'll go get you a prescription." It's like,
mhm.
all right. So I went and got a prescription and like started taking that, started abusing it, like getting it refilled every month,
Mhm.
and then we lost the house we were in because we weren't paying our bills. So we moved back into Oregon with her mom, and we're living in a house, and I was taking this Adderall and like jacking pain pills out of her mom's purse and taking all kinds of like abusing prescription drugs, drinking
Yeah.
alcohol, smoking pot. Um, and then her and I still fought like all the time. And it finally like climaxed when she told me that she'd cheated on me. And then like I called her some pretty derogatory things and she took a swing at me.
Mhm.
And then I pushed her. Just, I mean, she took us. It was, dude. I was all.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
no justifying it.
Yeah.
What was wrong? Well, then I'd already been to jail a couple times at this point for probation violations and like missing a court date. And so she's like, you need to leave. And I was like, all right, whatever. So I grabbed all like everything that was important to me at the time, my PlayStation, and like that was it. And I started walking to my grandparents' house. Well, I'd like punched myself in the face a couple times and then called the cops. And, dude, I was like vindictive little turd. I was trying to get her in
Yeah.
trouble.
Yeah.
Well, a cop came and picked me up and they went and found her. And I was on probation. And like I'd grabbed my PlayStation and then shoved my Adderall pill bottle down in there. And I was in the back of the cop car. They hadn't handcuffed me yet, but I could look out the windshield and see that the conversation wasn't going very well and I was probably going to go to jail.
Uh-huh.
And so, dude, I just reached in that pill bottle and I like ate like five of those bees all at once. Just
Wow.
got turned up and went to jail and got out the next day, tried to start over fresh. Her and I were done at this point.
Yeah.
And like if you thought I was in a downward dark spiral before it, oh my god, worse. I started like I wasn't making money or working anywhere, so I just would drink like that malted liquor.
Cheap stuff.
Yeah, that cheap like Steel Reserve, dude, and I just get
Oof.
turned up on. Yeah, ugh, ugh, dude. Uh,
It still makes you cringe now.
it does. It
Yeah.
does. It's stuff terrible.
Yeah.
Just getting drunk all the time and like stealing to pay my bills and like and I didn't never like what I was doing wasn't wrong in my mind. I was just trying to heal from what
Yeah.
happened with her. And,
Yeah.
and I started like dabbling with heroin a little bit
Mm,
and like anything to not be in the moment.
yeah. Escape, anything to escape, right? Yeah.
And I'd done meth at this point. but I did it at a bar because we ran out of Coke. My
Mhm.
buddy was like, I was like, dude, you have any more? And he's like, no. I'm like, okay, well, do you have anything else? He's like, well, I got this. Dude, I was up for days. It was awful.
Yeah.
And so I'd already crossed all these like
Yeah. Yeah.
barriers in my mind, like there was nothing that I could have done that I was afraid to do anymore.
Yeah.
And just going to raves and taking massive amounts of drugs and drinking a ton, smoking a ton of pot, smoking cigarettes, like dipping tobacco, just destroying my body, man. But and then my mom got a job at another small town on the Columbia River, and then I got a job there too. And I met a girl, and we started dating, started talking, and like I wanted nothing to do with my kids either, because whenever like I tried to watch them, I tried to
Hmm.
babysit them, and my ex was already seeing another dude. At that point, she was one of those that like
Yeah.
she had to have a man.
Quick to jump into something new. Yeah.
Mhm. And like before I knew it, I was living with this girl that I'd barely been dating like a week. And dude, I like everything started out good. Everything started out like all rosy.
Mhm.
And like she saw what I was doing, like taking Adderall. Like she saw
Yeah.
me open up my pill bottle at random times. And I mean, she wasn't stupid. It's just like
Yeah.
two to three times a day. She knew I was abusing drugs.
Yeah.
And pretty soon, like the whole Romeo effect, like wore off. You know what I mean? I lost my glitter because then I started treating her like crap and
Yeah.
just being horrible to her, like absolutely mentally abusive. Wasn't physically abusive, but
Yeah.
just like telling her all the time that she's cheating on me. And like, dude, I was in
Oh,
my like whacked out, paranoid because of the Adderall. And like, fast forward a few years, lost a couple jobs, like, lost jobs because I stole from them. Some dude, I was just a terrible human being.
yeah. 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 No, I'm not saying, yeah, you're a terrible human being, but yeah, man, you were lost. You're big time lost. You
Hmm.
lost addiction, bad relationships, not able to work. Yeah, man. Yeah, you were
Yeah,
lost, bro.
just had a terrible reputation with people too. Even
You
like
were under
lost.
strong demonic oppression, bro. That's all it is, man. That's all it is. People don't
Dude.
understand. It's like, and it's generational too. It comes from past generations, and
Hmm.
once you understand that, you can see the patterns, easily. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I know
Yeah,
you got a victory story. That's
yeah.
it's hard to listen to this stuff because I lost a brother to addiction. I went through some stuff. I got friends that are dead because of it, and I got cousins that are addicted. Like, so on my mom's side, she's got a bunch of sisters and like two brothers. Well, all of my aunties, all my sisters, they all have kids. And when my brother died, they were all there with all of their kids, my cousins. Each one of my aunties had one child that was addicted to something like bad. One of them is homeless on the streets, and he came and I saw him. I'm like, what? So it's just, it's sad
Well,
that it's to end that way sometimes, but
hmm
thanks to God, you have a victory story, right? But go ahead.
I I went and saved my little sister, out of a trap house, like straight
Uh-huh.
up.
Wait, hold on. You froze for a second. You said what?
I had to like go and kidnap my sister out of a trap house.
Okay.
And so I've said, like, I knew what meth did. I knew, Like I'd seen it. And the girl who I was dating, her mom, like I knew dabbled in it.
Uh-huh.
And dude, I would blast through like my month's supply of Adderall in like a week or two. And there had been times in the past where people had had meth, and I knew that that would like get me well. You know what I mean? Like the come
Yeah.
down was awful, so I knew that they were kind of similar. So I was out, and like by this point I'd gotten the girl I was dating, like she was taking Adder like my Adderall with me, so her and I were pretty like addicted to it. And so one time I just asked her mom, I was like, "Hey, can you ask your mom if she's got any meth?" And she did, and we did it. And dude, I don't know if I'm being crazy but I could feel like something changed that day. Like the whole world like shifted. Like
Mm-hmm.
what I was doing was wrong. And I had a job at the time, but I'd called in multiple times and made excuses why I couldn't come in because I was coming down from drugs and couldn't come in.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like going in, and I still didn't have my driver's license. So she was like supporting me and driving me and then going to her job and then having to leave her job and come and pick me up from like a 30-mile drive, 60 miles round trip.
Mm.
Dude, I was just treating her like dirt. And like her and I snorted meth like every day for like a year and multiple times a day. And I'd lost contact with my mom and my stepdad at the time. And dude, I was in a bad, bad way, bro.
Yeah.
Bad. And I started to feel like I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I didn't know what to do,
Yeah.
like how to get out of it because there was times that it was just like, all right, her and I just did the rest of our bag. And like I'd tell her, I'm like, don't go and get more. Well, I'd be up for like 5, 6 days, and I'd finally pass out, and then I'd wake up, and she'd have like lines racked out on the mirror in the living room. Just like, if you're gonna put it in front of me, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So at this point, you wanted out. You knew inside like that. This got to stop, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I called my mom, and I'd lost my job for stealing at the time, and that was like the final straw for her. She was just done with me, just hated, like started to hate me, and I could see it.
Yeah.
And I'd started texting my mom again because my mom and I call, like over the years I've gotten close to my mom that no matter what happened with my grandparents, her and I are like I love my mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the day that I came back to live with her after my grandparents like had their big fight, my grandpa cheated. I called like we call it our anniversary. So it was pretty close to that, and I think I texted her and she's like FaceTime me. So I FaceTimed her, and I couldn't understand why she started crying, just bawling her eyes out. And
Hmm.
I was like, Mom, I'm sick. What's your in my head, like all paranoid. I thought I had cancer or something. You know, but
Yeah.
I but my subconscious was telling her that I was sick because I was addicted to
Yeah.
meth. And I mean, she could look and see how sunken my cheeks were.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, can I come bring you your birthday present? It's like, yeah, okay. I walked outside and she's just crying and hands me this coat and hands me a Bible.